It is nothing short of incredible how Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann, fully knowing he had already struck gold, are able to simply... Welcome back, television fans, to my spoiler-free review of the first big event series of 2023, The Last of Us, taking place 20 years after modern civilization has been destroyed, where we meet Joel, a hardened survivor who is hired to smuggle Ellie out of an oppressive quarantine zone. But what starts as a small job soon becomes a brutal, heartbreaking journey as the two must traverse the US, trust each other, and depend on one another for survival. Now we're talking spoiler free in this video today, as the series does not premiere until Sunday, but I would love to every week gather with you after every single episode. So as you watch this review and hopefully enjoy it, let me know if you would like more Last of Us conversations. Now, as a big fan of this story, I've played both games several times, so I was watching this series like a hawk. And while I have my nitpicks here and there, and we'll get to it, I cannot in good conscience as a player of the games and for my fellow players of the games begin this review without carefully mentioning changes. How big or small they might be, how they might affect the narrative. In all honesty, there is only one big change in this entire season. And I personally wouldn't even call it a change, but more so an adjustment. I personally prefer the way this story thread plays out in the game, but I genuinely cannot deny how the way it's adapted leaves a bigger impact on Joel. It's an indispensable moment that paves the path for a major turn to begin and sets off a profound arc in the show. All of this to say, the essence of that story thread is kept untainted. And that is what the series does as a whole. It doesn't settle to remind you of how you once felt compelled by another version of the story if you play the games, but rather immerses you in this rich world with layered characters and manages to emotionally compel you all on its own, whether you're familiar with the games or not. And that's just absolutely impressive for me. Take it from someone who holds a very special place in their heart for the precious story told across these two games. The level of reverence, respect, and care is clear right off the bat, as the series is framed as a cautionary tale, making the narrative instantly compelling with the most important ingredient to The Last of Us: its heart. Don't get me wrong, I love seeing familiar landscapes, shots, and scenarios, experiencing the harrowing yet heartfelt character and narrative beats. I get chills hearing Gustavo's theme and compositions all through the journey, but it all would be null and void if not for Druckmann and Mazin's sensational script. One which maintains the essential core message of The Last of Us. It's a story about the loss and the reclaiming of one's humanity, which left me spending many episodes mentally preparing for the inevitable, and still I miserably failed. Every episode has you on edge. Even if you play the game and know what's coming, it instills in you how unforgiving and unpredictable the world is. There's this proverbial looming cloud of dread basically screaming, "Don't get attached." It's because of this, the most devastatingly chaotic moments leave you with such a pit in your stomach and out of breath, without ever compromising lingering moments of pain and the emotionality through this memorable journey. The series does a great job at conveying tension, stakes, fear of the clickers and the larger world, with every key beat leaving major narrative and emotional impact in shocking, even subtle, and ever-escalating ways. And every time I felt they took a risky shift in focus, the payoff of it greatly contextualizes Ellie's fear and despair, as well as Joel's anguish and sorrow. The series' focus on this cherished relationship at its core never falters. It is what gives this story its compelling heart, deepens its themes, and enriches the characters of this world. From the beginning, we are brought into this world by these two and their contrasting experiences and worldviews. The blossoming of this relationship grounds all the insanity and terror in personable human experience. We see it in Ellie's gumption, in her brave and brash nature, Yet, her naivety, curiosity, and purity, most of all, are constant reminders she is still a child, unprepared for this world, and she desperately needs Joel. In their journey, we witness this visual and thematic gradual loss of innocence with gut-wrenching effectiveness. The beautiful reflection of that being the insightful exploration of how the journey affects a cold and bitter Joel. It's something that gets lost in the game because there, Joel is meant to work as a vehicle, an avatar for us and our emotional investment. Here, we see him regaining his life and purpose. Joel's journey is about how, even without realizing, he slowly regains his humanity, confronts his trauma, and learns that connection is possible. Happiness is still achievable in a bleak, desolate, desperate world. So much of this is conveyed by the incredible performances of Pedro Pascal and Bella Ramsey. Their interactions are so rich and filled with detail and little nuances in their performances, how they look at each other, how close they stand together, how they walk side by side or one in front of the other, who begins certain interactions, and how their demeanor, their wording, their warmth towards one another really grows through the show. You feel rewarded in following these characters. And as much as I love Bella Ramsey as an actor, going into this series, I didn't really know if she was the one to play Ellie. But then, the opening scene of episode 2 just shows you she is fucking Ellie. And she only gets better from there. She gets these more challenging, emotional scenes that she has to play with such gravitas and nuance, and she constantly outdoes herself. Bella Ramsey as Ellie is an absolute revelation. And Pedro Pascal, listen, they are both outstanding, but Pedro is playing Joel with incredible nuance. Hot take, Pedro brings layers to the role that are completely lost in the games. He is conveying multitudes in between the already brilliant dialogue. There is so much understanding, there is so much compassion for this broken character through this story. And yes, all the details are there in the characterization, but Pedro brings so much life, so much pain to Joel. His performance, both their performances, Pedro and Bella prove themselves absolute perfection as Joel and Ellie, both giving Emmy-worthy performances. But even beyond Joel and Ellie, the world of The Last of Us has never felt more immersive and lived in. The 9-episode season offers such a cinematic scope and scale to their journey, where you do get these more silent, intimate moments to just be with Joel and Ellie connecting with one another as they walk and camp and survive across the vast, ravaged landscapes of America. And all through their journey, you get insight and depth added to the world through both their differing perspectives, their differing worldviews, and how they contrast with one another. But it is not just Joel and Ellie. They are our constants. They are our eyes into this world because their journey is so much about finding the humanity that has been lost with the infected, but also with the people left behind. So every time we meet new people, we meet new antagonistic forces, we get a better understanding of Joel and Ellie's circumstances. What has surrounded them? What has informed their journeys and made them the people they are by the time we first meet them in the series? The clickers are undoubtedly creepy, the runners unsettling. The infected in general create for some of the most suspenseful, white-knuckle sequences in the series. And as the series unravels, while the infected are a presence, the real threat are the people. Which, in fairness, is not going to work for everyone. A lot of people want to see those dread-filled sequences from the games in this show. And while you do have some glorious, panic-inducing sequences where even your heartbeat sounds loud, I personally really appreciated the deep dive, giving us better understanding into these people and the several factions that aim to govern this unruly America. From the Hunters to the Fireflies, there's much more insight into seeing what is left of humanity or lack thereof. From their belief system to their values and worldviews, this series takes the idea from the game and is able to expand on it because it prioritizes characterization, creating a powerful contrast between Joel and Ellie, their journey, and how far the rest of the world has fallen. So I really appreciated how believable the threat being humanity around them really was. And so the series fully encompasses and rewards your emotional investment, as every story thread, big or small, generates genuine tension, adding to the overarching narrative in fulfilling and small ways. And that means the only thing left to discuss are my nitpicks. And yes, I call them nitpicks, not issues. Doesn't mean you're going to feel the same way, but the more and more I thought about my problems with this show, they were all just things I preferred because I had an idea of the games. In sum, what The Last of Us series does is take on the insurmountable task of adapting a story that was perfectly told in a video game, and now it tells it perfectly, or as perfectly as anyone can do it, on the filmmaking medium. And if I could dive into spoilers in this video, I would share some of the tiny imperfections of the show, but to me, the tiny imperfections of The Last of Us are part of its glory. Where the game struck the perfect balance between narrative and gameplay, this series dedicates its entire self to narrative and characters in such a fulfilling way. It had such an insurmountable task, and to me, I couldn't ask for anything more. The Last of Us did not disappoint. And so, as I dive into my final thoughts on The Last of Us Season 1, don't forget the fun part where you start the conversation, share your thoughts, expectations on the series. Did you play the game? Did you not? And would you want to see weekly recaps and spoiler discussions on each episode? Anything and everything down there. And if you're enjoying this video, there's many more like it right here. A ton of reviews for shows and movies coming this year. So if you want to talk more movies and TV, this is the place to be. Consider clicking that subscribe button, and you won't miss any future conversations on your favorite movies and TV. It is nothing short of incredible how Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann, fully knowing he had already struck gold, are able to simply adjust the narrative for the new medium and never compromise the terror, the emotion, the catharsis, but in fact enhance these key components of an incredibly cinematic story, remaining faithful to what made it special in the first place for so many people. This show is a work of sheer brilliance regarding adaptations. It keeps the heart and soul of the original work, but it forges its own path, taking us on an immersive journey told in its own voice. I could not be happier. The Last of Us is heartbreaking, intimate, entrancing, and cathartic. It's an adaptation that faithfully builds on its origin but never relies on it, perhaps becoming the better version of the story. Ramsey and Pascal are absolute perfection in this beautifully told story about love, companionship, and finding connection in the darkest of times. It's a story about hope. And I'm giving The Last of Us Season 1 an A. Those are my spoiler-free thoughts on The Last of Us. Thank you so much for watching, and remember, let me know if you want to see Last of Us videos every week as the episodes drop. Big thank you to my channel members for always supporting the channel, and I'll be back very soon with more videos. So until the next one, love each other and love the movies.